If we had that airship, we'd have our way into the Empire.
Let's set up a meeting with this Setzer.
When things fall, they fall. Life's a game of chance. You play your cards and fate plays hers.
Oh, Edgar, you know you only stand to lose by trying to hide her from us.
I have a Magitech armor transport ship moored in the port of Albrook. I had hoped to send it to Crescent Island with all haste.
That Esper reacted to your magical powers. There's got to be a relationship.
I don't know any more than you do. These powers just come naturally to me.
You're a human being before you're a soldier. Don't be so eager to throw away your life.
Listen, his family was just whisper, 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 okay?
Me understand, me sorry, count on me in person.
Water under the bridge. Let us not dwell on such things.
That child. My apologies.
It's fine. He usually doesn't like other people, though.
It's a little disjointed.
Seems like a lot of short scenes.
It's bold in terms of jerking people around, but I may have gone too far in a few places.
If you think things have been getting a little weird with AI recently, it looks like you're not alone. As of right now, the view from early 2023, it looks like we're currently leaving the global health outbreak and entering the revolutionary AI outbreak, where these things are just absolutely pile driving every conceivable variation of the Turing test. When AI audio cloning started getting good, I wanted to have a machine read text out loud, in this case a game I've been wanting to play for a while, but my stupid ADD-addled lizard brain had been scared away by its word count. But I've been pretty split on whether I should make a video on it, and I went through with it mainly because I wanted to use this format to explore two questions. Can this be done? And also, should this be done? In this video, I'll be addressing the first question, which TLDR, yes, apparently. In the follow-up video, I'll cover the history, ethics, and ramifications of this set of technologies, which should also be pretty interesting because the public perception of this stuff seems to be shifting by the minute. I'd been holding off until the technology was in a place where the delivery was sufficiently convincing, and when I saw a post on Wall Street Bets with the villain from Morrowind emphatically yellowing his life savings at out-of-the-money options expiring tomorrow, it was at that point where I thought this technology was ready for this. And that is just by far the best advice I've ever gotten from Wall Street Bets. I put together a casting sheet based off a bunch of basic character summaries, which is easily just the most deranged thing I've ever written, but somehow it ended up even worse than those fake casting sheets you'd see online. Because not only have I not played this game before, I actually knew very little about it, other than there being a sizable portion of the series' fanbase that consider it to be the best one. So I had to base casting off character synopses as much as I could without spoiling anything for myself. I also made these portraits in Night Cafe using the Stable Diffusion AI art model, and consulted Microsoft's implementation of ChatGPT on some of these casting choices. I cannot emphasize this enough, I'm literally just a monkey slapping away at a keyboard at this point. The version I used was just a regular pixel remaster on Steam, along with a Java process I wrote that's running in the background that uses Tesseract to read the text on the screen in real time, cross-referencing it with lines of dialogue stored in the system, according to the line that had the highest likelihood of being, and plays the associated voice file. The files themselves were generated using a metric buttload of API calls to this particular AI cloning service.
Adventure? Drama? Excitement? You want it? It's yours, my friend. As long as you have enough rubies.
Yeah, it cost $22 to spam their system with just the dumbest requests, like, say the line, "Save your thanks for the Moogles," but pretend you're James Dean. Which, if you're wondering...
Save your thanks for the Moogles.
The lines themselves are parsed off a couple of full dialogue manuscripts I found, and sent in their API through a bash script in bulk, and I don't know if anyone at 11AI watched me force-feed the entirety of Final Fantasy VI into their system, but the mental imagery of that is kind of entertaining. The end result of all of this is a software stack that makes a Michael Reeves project look over-engineered in comparison, but it does everything I need it to, and that's all I really care about. In terms of casting the three main protagonists, I was pretty split between Linda Hamilton and Sigourney Weaver for Terra, and I ended up going with the former, so I thought her delivery would have the best chance of being replicated properly. I wanted a major cultural icon from both the past and present for these two, and while Taylor was a pretty obvious choice for the present, I went with Dean for the past, because of some relatively recent interest in adding him to an upcoming movie in a similar manner. For the main villain Kefka, I fit in a relatively small role by Hugo Weaving that had a bunch of post-production work done to it, and what came out was basically just this weird evil leprechaun, and to my understanding, after doing a bit of research, I either completely butchered this, or I may have accidentally made the most lore-accurate portrayal of Kefka to ever exist, depending on who you ask.
I'll collect more espers, I'll extract their magic, and then I'll revive the warring triad. I've already drained all your powers. You're useless to me now. You two take a hike.
Everyone else was casted according to what little I knew about their characters, along with what I thought would be the most entertaining. The end result was definitely usable, but predictably buggy at times. Sometimes the voice API returned an empty audio recording. Sometimes Tesseract would mangle its OCR readings. Sometimes the line match algorithm crapped out, and I was too afraid to touch it because I don't know how this works. All these inconsistencies meant I can only get this working 70 to 90% of the time. But when all this did work, this was actually really cool. It ends up adding a whole new layer to this game. It's like the difference between reading a book and listening to a fully casted radio production. Especially that feeling when a new character gets introduced, and up to that point you'd forgotten who you cast for them, and when they just roll in and nail their line read, bro, it's the best feeling in the world, especially considering all the work it took to get there.
What are you doing over there?
This scene also resulted in what might be my favorite soundbite in this whole thing.
Oh no, it's Kefka!
I did play all the way through, and it was actually really enjoyable. I mean, depending on the performance, it fluctuated between really solidly delivered dramatic material and a lucid nightmare of distinctly recognizable voices that all exist in the deepest recess of the auditory uncanny valley. So in that regard, it went about as well as you could expect, but it's still really cool either way. And I wouldn't ever see myself going back to the silent version of this game. Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor ended up being a solid choice for Terra, and I literally just now, as I'm writing the script after finishing this game, just realized the irony of having Sarah Connor portrayed by an actual AI. James Dean turned Locke from a roguish goofball to just the coolest version of this character to have ever existed.
You're that infamous thief Locke, aren't you?
Oh, now that was just plain rude. I'm a treasure hunter, and don't you forget it.
While the three main protagonists are pretty well casted, there are some incredibly solid supporting characters that also really sold it. Setzer, Edgar, the Emperor, Shadow, Sid, and Strago stood out as having really clean quality output, but Cayenne, especially, was the best excellently casted character in that he matched his original character a bit too well.
Sir Sabin, how does one manipulate these abominations? Sir Sabin, it appears to be in reverse. Cannot stop this monstrosity. How dare you, licentious howler, off with thee! Thou art unaffected by these charms? Enough of that. A proper woman should have modesty and decency and rent. I shall go with thee. We must not abandon the world to Kefka. But however did thou find me? Wait, to tell me thou did not read my letters. They're sort of a minor diversion of mine.
And the narration done by every millennial's favorite uncle was really good too. Also, because of the way the transcript was written, along with how I wrote my parser, instead of just a standard narration, it ended up doing voices for a bunch of other on-screen events. And what might be my favorite accident in this entire project.
Stole his clothes, too. Cayenne replaced the letter with a different one.
Even the times he's confidently incorrect were still really enjoyable.
Obtained tintinabulum, 9093 points.
Overall, the best voices generally came from actual voice actors, and I hope you can appreciate my genuine look of surprise when I made that realization. Then there's the ones that didn't come out right. I casted Wimplo from Kung Pao as a recurring comic relief octopus, and sad to report, he didn't quite make it.
You stand in the presence of octopus royalty. A lowborn thief like you could never defeat me. I challenge you to a duel. I rock and roll all day long, sweet Susie. I challenge you.
One of these voices came out so inconsistent, I was actually able to leverage it as a voice for every unlabeled NPC. Sometimes it matched up really well.
Oh, wow, we don't see many travelers around here.
This ferry's bound for South Figaro.
Pretty impressive that a kid like me can run a business, don't you think? You should buy something to encourage me.
Sometimes it didn't.
Mama, I got an OE. There's always a nasty draft in this room. Oh, where is it coming from? I'm afraid I'll catch a cold.
But it ended up being a neat, simple trick for voicing dozens of varied lines from different unnamed NPCs that I wasn't about to do this manually. While I don't know anyone who's done real-time TTS for a game, I'm willing to bet I'm not the first to do something similar. In fact, someone with impaired vision would probably use existing accessibility text-to-speech features with default Microsoft Voices and have a mechanically similar experience, if maybe a little less unhinged to whatever this ended up being.
Back then, there was a person who kept me working towards my dream. The pilot of the Falcon, the fastest airship ever made. At times we were friendly rivals, and at times we were simply friends.
Also, speaking of unhinged, the parser I wrote had no way of distinguishing between lines and stage directions, which resulted in the occasional, well, you know.
This isn't my world. Disappointed!
Well, let me speak to the man in charge. Sarcastically, I'm in charge. I don't.
Also, these parentheses sometimes contain context-based conditionals that, might have spoiled some stuff. But overall, it was a really neat experience, and I plan on posting a follow-up with an edited-down version of the whole playthrough. But in summary, it's cool. It's a neat way to experience this game. But there's still a lot to these technologies I'd like to explore in a follow-up. Because unfortunately, it was about this point in the project where my Windows install decided now would be a good time to just wipe itself out. And I'm actually really lucky to just get this video up at all. So I'm going to call it here. Hopefully it won't be too long on the follow-ups. So subscribe if you want to see that stuff when it's ready. Or don't. You do you. I'm not your dad.